Very good. Welcome to this Q&A. This one's on nitrates, betaine and betalains. All very interesting, I guess, components or compounds that are all found in beets. They're found in other things as well, but what most of you probably associate most of these or these three compounds with is beets, and we're going to cover those today and discover whether or not they're worth taking. So we'll cover nitrates, then betaine, then betalain, and we'll hopefully have some time for Q&A. You know who the team is now, Elizabeth, myself, and Dr. Alan McCubbin. Yeah, I don't think I need to go into any more detail than that. So, nitrates. Everyone associates, I think, nitrates or beets with nitrates. And I think it's important that we cover what they are, okay? So, and how do you, or what do nitrates do to the body? So the easiest way to think about this is there's like this progression from nitrates, okay, that you get from vegetables in particular, okay, and as it says there, beetroot in particular. Amaranth is another one, which is a grain, cruciferous vegetables or cruciferous greens, radishes, things like that. Nitrates gets converted to nitrites. So from NO3 to NO2, and then to nitric oxide, which is NO. And it's the nitric oxide which has the effect on the body and the specific effects of the nitrates, okay? So this is what we call a gaseous signaling molecule, okay? And the main action of nitrates, once it becomes nitric oxide, is vasodilation. Vasodilation, as I'm sure you all know, is the widening, okay, of the blood vessels. Now, what this does is ultimately improves oxygen delivery and nutrient delivery, okay? And that's effectively what it's doing. So that's what nitrates do. They, from a health perspective, they've been shown to improve blood pressure. So around 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury pressure drop with chronic consumption of nitrates or nitrate-containing foods. Can improve neurotransmission. Because of the vasodilation, you'll get an enhanced blood flow to the muscles, improve muscle efficiency, and you also get better sexual health. So for men out there who maybe suffer from a little bit of droop, it has been shown to improve erectile dysfunction. So any men or any women whose partners are struggling, then potentially some extra beets in the diet could actually be of benefit. So that's pretty much what nitrates do. So the key thing with nitrates is it is in relation to the action on vasodilation or the widening of blood vessels, which improves blood delivery and ultimately oxygen and micronutrient delivery. So this was a nice meta-analysis, systematic review, and this was just a statement I took from it. It is likely to improve exercise tolerance and capacity. Okay, nitrate supplementation is likely to improve exercise tolerance and capacity that may improve exercise performance. So in other words, by able to cope with increased training volume or increased training load, that can therefore improve exercise performance. And that's what it's relating to, okay? So that ability to potentially provide increased amounts of blood flow, increased amounts of oxygen, improved or increased amounts of micronutrient delivery to the muscles, that potentially could improve exercise performance. So what does that look like from a practical standpoint? So in terms of what the research will talk about in terms of a maintenance level for the daily consumption of nitrates through vegetable sources or those cruciferous vegetables and beets and things is around 4 milligrams per kilo body weight. Now, if I'm 80 kilos, okay, that's 320 milligrams per day that we should be aiming for. Now, the average, when they look at studies and look at the daily consumption that most people will consume, it's probably not surprising that it's very, very low, considering the average person consumes less than 2 serves of vegetables a day, but the average person consumes around 75 milligrams of these dietary nitrates. So we're well under as a population, and that's population-based studies, but certainly what we're seeing is this simple compound that could have a lot of beneficial effects for health, in particular health, in terms of lowering blood pressure and stuff like that, that we're not consuming that because we're not consuming enough vegetables. In terms of per serve, and now we're talking about performance elements, you're looking at majority of studies have investigated 400 milligrams of dietary nitrates in a single serve. Okay, and this is usually provided through what we call beetroot juice concentrate. Okay, and there's one brand in particular which is called Beat-It or Beat-It Elite, which is, you know, very well researched in terms of its ability to deliver this 400 milligrams per serve of dietary nitrates. Now, the benefits for supplementing in terms of that 400 milligram dose, and this is for around 5 to 7 days leading up to performance. You'll have time to exhaustion has been shown to be improved, a reduced VO2. So what that means, and that's a good thing, we're not talking VO2 max, it's meaning that the amount of oxygen being consumed to perform the same relative work is less. So it improves efficiency, okay, and probably related to that delivery of blood flow. Increased peak power has been shown. Time trial performance with nitrates is sort of equivocal. Some studies have shown that it's been beneficial and they've had reduced time trial performance or timing, whereas other studies have shown no effects. There certainly has also been some studies showing improved repeated sprint efforts. And again, if you think of the main action of dietary nitrates, it's probably because of that increased blood flow and delivery of oxygen. Touched on, so, you know, 5 to 7 days of this sort of 400 milligram serve, if you were to do it, if you were looking to improve performance. But I guess the question mark is, you know, should you be taking dietary nitrates on a daily basis, and certainly consuming, you know, your 5 to 7 serves of sort of cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, aiming to get that will certainly help to get that amount of dietary nitrates up. And I think you got to look at the bigger picture. So there's no age. There doesn't appear to be age or gender difference or bias in terms of the effect of this particular supplement or compound. Training experience will tend to reduce the effect in performance. So if you're an absolute amateur, you'll probably see more benefit from supplementing with dietary nitrates than, say, someone who is very well trained. It's not to say that they won't get benefit, they just may not get as much benefit. However, for the elite, maybe that 1% or 2% is actually significant. So you got to think about that as well. As I said, health versus performance. I think there's probably enough research relating to the benefits around blood pressure to say that dietary nitrate should be, you know, that's probably where I think they've got the most promise for athletes in terms of maintaining good health. Blood pressure, is as much as anything something to be considering taking in, you know, your dietary nitrates. If you want to take the actual shots, probably the biggest drawback is the cost of them, and for some people the taste. Some people just don't like the taste of beets. If you are going to use them for performance measures, you certainly don't want to be using a mouthwash afterwards, because of the way in which dietary nitrates are absorbed. A lot of it is absorbed through the mucosal lining of the mouth. So if you do brush your teeth or wash your mouth out with a mouthwash, it will diminish the effect of the dietary nitrates. So there's an excuse not to brush your teeth as well. Okay, betaine. Has anyone heard of betaine? Okay, so betaine is also is found in the same thing. It's found in beets or beetroot. It's also found in spinach, shellfish, celery, flour, and wheat bran. So it comes from an amino acid, from glycine. It's also known as trimethylglycine. So you may see this in supplement stores and things like that, or in literature or research papers, and it's often referred to as trimethylglycine. It is metabolized in the liver, so it's also sold as sometimes a liver support supplement. I will 100% say when you read the literature on this, it is so murky and so sort of obscure that they don't really understand how betaine works. Okay, so the mechanisms, a lot of it is proposed, and it's sort of theoretical. So it is, a lot of the research currently is relating to improvements in strength and body composition. So one of the proposed mechanisms of how it works is via the mTOR pathway. The mTOR pathway is related to muscle protein synthesis. So in order to stimulate the mTOR pathway, you need certain nutritional requirements. You also need certain stimulus from the environment, say exercise or weightlifting, but things like leucine become important. Betaine is another element that can help enhance the mTOR pathway. It has been shown to reduce markers of overreaching or functional overreaching. And when we talk about those markers, we're talking about pro-inflammatory markers. And as it says there, things like cortisol, high sensitivity CRP, interleukin-6, and TNF alpha, which are all markers or are all when we say pro-inflammatory, inflammatory markers that have been shown to occur directly after exercise or after chronic amounts of high intensity exercise or higher load exercise, and that relates to that functional overreaching. In terms of that mTOR pathway and the mechanisms for how it may help with body composition, but also lean muscle mass and strength gains, it has been shown to increase insulin growth factor 1 production and also human growth hormone. And it has improved receptor expression, so the ability for those receptors to work with those hormones that are produced. But as I said, it is very murky in terms of how it actually, the true mechanisms of how it is. Now, the big take home for this is that for betaine, there is a clear lack of robust evidence, despite what you might read in social media, and certainly it depends on who you follow, I guess, but more recently, Betaine has achieved or got a lot of attention because there were 2 studies in particular that showed these huge differences in strength and power in soccer players. However, the studies that were that did this and showed these results have been called into question around their validity. So it is something to think about, but I think it's potentially a supplement that could be really interesting. Potentially anecdotally, people have reported some of these benefits. You would be taking around 2 to 3 grams of this, so 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day. You need to take it, again, the timing of this based on the studies, and there's about 8 studies done on it. There's varying durations. So some of the studies were as little as 2 weeks, which showed these huge increases in strength, power, reductions in cortisol, increases in free testosterone, where other studies going up to 14 weeks have been less favorable for its consumption. So as it says there, reduced delayed onset of muscle soreness, improved strength, reduced inflammatory markers, that IL-6, CRP, TNF, changes in testosterone, changes in growth hormone, certainly in a positive or a favorable manner, reduced morning cortisol, which was tested over repeated mornings, and also improved body composition. The improved body composition is theorized as that it may offset the ability of adipose tissue to use, I'm pretty sure that I'm getting this right, their ability to use free fatty acids or assimilate free fatty acids and deposit that as fat tissue. So that's one, again, another hypothesis around how betaine may work. I think the bigger picture with this one is that there's pretty equivocal results. It's not like, oh yes, this is going to do all those benefits, okay? There are question marks over the studies, and as I said, only 2 studies have really shown outstanding results with this. So would I say go and take betaine on its own? Maybe some test cases, maybe some people who really warrant it. Maybe they've had a lot of hormonal issues, maybe testing with that, are looking for some ways of potentially reducing delayed onset muscle soreness. They could take it for a few weeks and see if it makes a difference, but it's probably one of those ones where I'd probably say not worth the effort. And then we have Betalain, again, found in beetroot, found in chard, and so Swiss chard, and also tubers. And it's again derived from an amino acid called tyrosine. How does it work? So it works via antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, but it does not contain any nitrates. So what it does is reduce this reactive oxygen stress or series. Okay, so effectively it's blocking or reducing, dampening down that inflammatory response that can occur after exercise. Okay, and it's not saying that that inflammatory response is bad after exercise. It's just saying that this could dampen it down, and that may allow for improved efficiency of the muscle. So what it does is then it actually increases nitric oxide availability. And if we go back to what nitrates do, which is, nitrates, nitrites, nitric oxide, what Betalain does is actually increase that final step of nitric oxide availability. So it then helps to increase vasodilation, increase blood flow and oxygen delivery, but it also has this anti-inflammatory property. So it's sort of like, is it the magic or not the magic? Is it the key component in beetroots, or is it the nitrates? So it's a bit of a long one, but effectively this is summing up what I just said. So it can knock out some of those free radicals, okay, that inflammatory response, which leads to that increase in nitric oxide, which then leads to the increased blood flow and oxygen delivery, okay? And they've got this potent anti-inflammatory properties, okay, by reducing those things that we talked about with betaine, which is like the TNF alpha and the interleukin 6. And I'm sure Karen's looking at this going, well, this is sort of stuff that she knows about because of her. Are you all right if I say the condition?
Yeah.
So lupus, yeah?
Yep.
So, and lupus obviously has a lot of these sort of pro-inflammatory markers, and Karen, deals with this a lot. So it's sort of like, is this something that potentially could be used by her to dampen down some of the excessive inflammatory markers? So, sorry, the dose is wrong there. So for this, the dose is wrong for this. It should be 100. Most of the studies have used 100 milligrams. Now, there are question marks over that because they're not quite sure exactly how much Betalain is actually in that 100 milligram dose. And it's mainly from a product called Alt Red. There are question marks whether the dosage of 100 milligrams per day is actually enough, and maybe they should be going higher than that. In the studies that have been done using Betalain, they've done a 6-day preload with this product. And the reason they did the 6-day preload, they've sort of compared this to the dietary nitrates. So effectively, you've got dietary nitrates, and then you've got, which is called beetroot juice concentrate. And then you've got the Betalain, Betalain juice concentrate, which is minus the nitrates. But you're seeing these two products being put up against each other in similar studies. Obviously, the Betalain is only at 100 milligrams and the nitrates is at 400 milligrams per dose, but you're seeing actually quite similar results. And so what would be really nice to see is a study where they actually compared the nitrates to the Betalain supplement and see if that makes a complete difference or not. What you will see with the studies that have been done, although there are not many studies on this, as far as I'm aware, there's only 2 studies that have been done on Betalain supplementation. You saw, and it was done with triathletes, which was pretty cool. So they did a reduced 10-kilometer time trial run, and it was, I would say, significant, 78 seconds. I think anyone would be pretty happy to knock off, over a minute 18 off their 10K time trial time. And for 5K time trial time, again, I would say 42 seconds is fairly significant if you were to do that. There were only 25 triathletes in those 2 studies. It did also say, it also did show reduced creatine kinase, which is a marker of muscle breakdown. So it could, again, in that anti-inflammatory type response, it could be having an impact on that. And that reduced CK level might have been what resulted in this reduced fatigue index that a lot or the majority of the athletes reported having, which was one of the markers in the studies. Again, like there's two main studies on this. The other studies are, not really anything to write home about. So I think you've got to look at the studies and what is currently in the research. And I think overall, what we've got to say is more research probably required for Betalain. So you will recognize probably some of these products. So the product on the top left is the most studied beetroot concentrate. So beetroot juice concentrate. It's called Beat It and Beat It Sport. It has the Informed Sport tag, which means that it's tested for banned substances. We used to use it at the Leafs a lot. We used it with Oracle Team USA. The athletes that used it loved it. The athletes that didn't like it hated it because of the taste. It is quite divisive in terms of what it tastes like. We did have a product of True Protein, which unfortunately in the powdered form tested positive for a banned substance, even though it was made from beetroot. So that banned substance, though, is actually a naturally occurring substance that is found in beetroots. It's just that in beetroot powder form, the levels of that banned substance will probably find you in trouble with WADA. So if it was mixed in water, it probably wouldn't, but it is something to be aware of. So you've then got this product down the bottom, Total Beats. I believe it's a popular product. I've looked everywhere. It claims a lot of things. It claims all the things I talked about that nitrates can do. Blood flow, nitric oxide, stamina, endurance, all that. It does not have a label anywhere on the label, anywhere on the website, noting how much dietary nitrates are contained per serving. When we look at research investigating dietary nitrate supplements, there is a huge variation in the serve of dietary nitrates in there. Some products will have 0. Some products will have well over 1,000 milligrams of dietary nitrates. So what I would urge you, if you are going to take dietary nitrates, is probably either take it in whole food form, say beetroots, and eat them regularly. But if you are going to go a supplement, I would probably stick with Beat It for the time being. Unless you can find another product with Informed Sport on it, I would probably stick to that. The other product, top right, Alt Red. This product was brought to my attention probably a year or two ago. And actually, I remember looking at it thinking, oh, the dosage isn't enough. I think per capsule was 50 milligrams of Betalain. And I was like, oh, that's not enough. And then I started reading around and looked at the research, and 100 milligrams is what's been used. Do I think that's probably tip of the iceberg? I think for lighter athletes, maybe 100 milligrams enough. If you're a heavy athlete, would I experiment potentially with higher doses of Alt Red? Potentially. Stick to, the dosing regime. You would be taking that, 6 days leading up to a race, but I'd certainly be doing 6 days leading into training sessions as well and practicing with that Alt Red if you are going to take it. I guess the thing is you will get Betalains from the Beat It. So, are you just doubling up on that? But I guess the other point being is if you're just going for a pure performance aspect, should you just be thinking about taking the Betalain and trialing that? The Betaine, this is pretty much the only supplement I've been able to find online and it's called TMG because that's the trimethylglycine. And this is, now's a brand that I have used in the past, but it's certainly not Informed Sport. It's not NSF Sport, and it's not HASTA certified. So if you were taking that Betaine, then you run the risk of a potential tainted sample. I believe Alt Red is NSF Sport. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's either NSF Sport or Informed Sport, I'm pretty sure. beat it definitely is, and it's informed sport. And force factor total beats definitely is not. And there are a lot of beat products on. I just went on Amazon and had a look at beat products, and there was a lot of rubbish there. So I would certainly do, like, you know, what we talked about with the whey protein and everything like that. Do your due diligence. Look at where the source of the product is. Look at the look at the company. Look at the details. Are they telling you how much, if it's a nitrates product, how much dietary nitrates are there? How much Betalain is there, how much betaine is in each serving. If it's not saying that, then it's not tested and it's probably not worth your money. So I think for me, you know, it makes you think about this, and this is probably what I wanted to leave you with is, you know, look, beetroot or beet supplements will contain all three: nitrates for health, betaine for strength and body comp, Betalain for performance. I guess that's maybe the way you think about it. Obviously, nitrates has been shown to improve performance as well. Your total dose and timing may be key for their effect. Like most things, more research required. Where would I lean towards? Look, I think the fact that nitrates have a good health benefits in terms of, you know, improvement in blood flow, improvement in oxygen delivery, that vasodilation, the nitrates from that perspective. I certainly think eating your dietary nitrates makes sense. If you really want to supplement with a nitrate, then I would 100% recommend the Beat It Elite. Betaine, I think if you're doing a lot of strength work, possibly in the off season, betaine could be something to play around with. I don't think for triathletes, betaine supplementation is worth considering in season. That would be my take home with that. I think it could be something to trial in the off season. If you do struggle with a lot of delayed onset muscle soreness, if you've had a lot of issues with, say, some of those pro-inflammatory markers and you've had those tested repeatedly and not had very good results. But just be aware, supplementation with that, you run the risk of, you know, getting something that could potentially have banned substances. So that is certainly on you. And then I think the Betalain, as I said, Alt Red is pretty much the only supplement I've seen with any research behind it, but it's certainly only 2 studies. I think it's interesting. I think it's promising. I think anecdotally, I know athletes do use it and do feel better on it. Would I cycle it? I think if you're competing, you know, fairly regularly, I'd probably just keep taking it all the time. There therefore comes a cost, a budgetary cost with that. But I think, yeah, it could be worth taking as long as you've got one which has the Informed Sport or NSF Sport certification on it, or HASTA. So you're not running the risk, if you are taking a supplement chronically, that you're not running a risk of any, you know, adverse testing or negative, or, you know, false positives and things like that. So that's it. It's a lot to get through, but I'm surprised I managed to get through it in that time. So any questions? Does anyone take any of them? That's probably the first
I
thing.
do.
Who's
Yeah,
saying that?
Scott, I take it.
What do you
I've
take?
been taking.
Alt Red?
I take the human and the Beat Elite. It's informed tested.
Which one?
Informed
The
sport tested.
human beats?
And the human Beat Elite.
Yeah, I saw that on the feed, but it doesn't have any information around the dietary nitrates contained in it.
No, it doesn't. That's I agree with you. I spent the last half hour looking, and it tells me what's in it, but it doesn't tell me a percentage.
So I like question. I would reach out to them and say, well, how much dietary, have you had this certified? So when we were at True, when I was at True, and we had a product called Upbeat, and we got it certified with the dietary nitrates per serve. So we had 420 milligrams of dietary nitrates per serve. We had that tested. You can get it done. If they're wishy-washy about it, it's not worth you taking it, honestly. It's a bit like the you know, exactly the same as the talk we had with True last week. Like, they will stand by their product. They'll tell you where they get their whey protein, where they get their plant protein, all that sort of stuff. Like, if you speak to Beat It, they will they'll show you so much documentation on, their dietary nitrates and how they make, they've got no secrets. Like they're just, this is it. Whereas, other companies who aren't putting it on their websites and that, I'm always like, oh, really? Is it really what you're claiming? And what was the other
funny.
one?
I think I used to beat it. No, I don't do the alt red. I didn't know that there was a difference between the two, and I was taking one. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fascinating with it when you look at the mechanistic systems behind Betalain. Effectively, it does what dietary nitrates does. So it does result in this increased vasodilation. So you should see benefits around blood pressure and that theoretically from Betalain supplementation as well. So yeah,
right.
It could be one of those ones. And, Karen, I think we have talked about it. We've talked about, have we? I think we have. Maybe not.
I don't know that I remember.
This, I was thinking, have I talked to Karen about this?
But it's funny when you were talking about it, I was like, oh, I need to ask my doctors next week about that.
Yeah, and I think the reality is, Karen, is that there's just not enough research on it. You're a bit of a guinea
and there won't be for people like me.
No. And so, look, if you took Betalain, you've got, you get your bloods done, your markers, all those inflammatory markers a lot. And I guess what we've been looking at is those markers, and you're doing really well with controlling it. Can we see further improvement through something like, one supplement where I would probably say take more than the 100 milligrams. But, you could start with the 100 milligrams and we see if it has any effect. And then you just start increasing the dose over each 30-day period and see if it has positive effects on you. So, yeah, look, as I said, I think the alt red is interesting. Anecdotally, a lot of athletes swear by it.
Well, I know some people that take it. I have a question. So do you have to do one of these specific supplements? Because I just drink straight up beet juice that I buy from the grocery store. I mean, it is just beet juice.
Yeah, you can. So the thing is that beetroot juice, those shots are concentrated.
So I just drink 8 ounces of it. I mean, I just drink, measure out
those things are like 30 or 45 mils. So they're tiny. Because it's a concentrate. So if you go on their website, they do have a beetroot juice, and I think it gives you, I'm pretty sure it gives you a comparison of dietary nitrates in the juice versus the concentrate. So you should be able to get an indication of how much dietary nitrates you're getting from beetroot juice. The thing I think you've also got to be careful of is that I believe the nitrates might degrade if they're exposed to air. I think so. If it's not sealed and it's not fresh, it might be something to consider. It might be worth juicing yourself. Yeah, I know. Pain in the ass and messy. So
far too much work.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're like all supplements. I think you've got to look at the big picture here as well, everyone. Like, are you doing everything right? Apart from taking a supplement, are you getting your protein in? Are you getting your amounts of dietary fats? Are your carbs on point in terms of timing before and after? Are you doing your carb intake? What's your carb capacity for in-session fueling? Is that on point? Your total calories, is that on point again for the entire day, for the entire week? Are you mastering your hydration? So on, before worrying about taking, something like alt red. It's sort of it's tempting to say, oh, it could do all those wonderful things for me, but the reality is it's probably, it's not marginal gains. As I said, those times are fairly impressive, but there are only 2 studies. Will it make that difference? Don't know. Julie, your thoughts?
No, I think I'm fascinated by the dosage. I mean, I've done the beat it, but I really it wrecks my stomach. So I have to take it at the right time of day, and then but I think I'm curious. I'm I like the dosage, that like 5 to 7 days leading up to a race. I don't know if I could take it race morning, but that might be the time to take like alt red. But are you familiar with this? So the feed sells this.
I know
It's
them.
nitric oxide.
Yeah, I know that. I've seen that brand, but does it have
they claim that, but I mean, I was just curious. I mean, they're big fans of this, but this is also their brand,
yeah,
the feed, over alt red.
yeah. What does it say?
It says Swiss X nitric oxide, but under ingredients, it says like L-citrulline,
citrulline,
grapeseed
grape,
extract, and
quercetin dihydrate. Yeah, so it's not using dietary nitrates.
No.
So I'm not 100% sure how that's working.
Yeah, I tried to get an explanation. It was supposedly supposed to work like that, but without the ingredient. I was just curious. So
yeah, I don't know that one. I won't comment on
it. Yeah, that's a safe approach.
It's very unlike me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a good reminder. I mean, it's another thing out there.
I think look, the thing with supplements, and you just got to be so careful. I'm not saying that product is rubbish. I'm just saying that there is a lot of rubbish out there. A lot of products that just claim and claim and claim and do very little, and they cost a lot of money for a lot of athletes. And I think overall, spend your money on things that work, like Fuelin.
Yeah. Well, it's that kind of stuff is the most
eating better, and getting all the basics right. But it's not cool, is it? You can't hold it up and show everyone and things like that. So it's like the shiny bike, isn't it? You can't have that. You can't have nutrition hanging on your wall behind you. So
it's not the magic pill.
Exactly. So and I think more and more people are understanding this, that I think people try all these magic diets, magic pills and that, and then they get sick and tired of it. And then they gradually realize, oh, maybe it's just like training, and it's all about consistency and adherence. And if you do things regularly, you tend to get better at them. It's just skill building, isn't it? So
yeah, for sure. And it's all, you've got to do all the other things first. You can't eat McDonald's every day and take Beat and expect magic results.
Exactly.
Right.
Steve, I saw your question. Can you eat too many beets? Yeah, you can eat too many of anything. I certainly wouldn't. One thing that you will notice if you take the beet juice is a lot of people will report that their poos will go very black or red. Your pee, your urine will often go red as well. Don't have a heart attack and think that you're bleeding. It is something certainly and also tell your family, because if you don't flush the toilet and there's suddenly the appearance of what looks like blood in the toilet, people will be freaking out. So can you eat too many of them? Look, I think you would struggle. My understanding is you have to eat about 1 kilo of beets in order to get the equivalent of the amount in that tiny little beet juice concentrate. So if you want to eat 1 kilo of beets every single day, good luck. But I don't think many people are going to do that. So I'd say that you could eat too many beets, but it's unlikely you ever will. Any other questions?
No, this is super helpful though. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, look, it's it's one of those, I think it's a really interesting topic. It's it's probably, as I said, at the top of the pyramid, but it's always fun just to have a look at this sort of fancy stuff. And now you'll recognize if you see nitrates or nitric oxide or nitrates or betaine or betalain, you can go, oh, I know where they are and I know where they come from. And, hopefully you can help people maybe save some money and understand, what they should be taking. And look, overall, again, I would say as well, eat your leafy greens. It probably comes down to eat your beets and eat your leafy greens, and everything comes back to fruit and vegetables in the end, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So anyway,
All right, Scott, thank you so much.
yeah, if you can just fill in the questionnaire at the end of it, that would be awesome. And
Sure.
we'll see you all later.
Bye. Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.